Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been getting some requests to do some more lake breakdowns. Seems like a lot of people like those videos and they get a lot of views, so that's good. So it's telling me that's kind of what people like to see as well. I have a feeling that a lot of the BFL guys and people coming to those lakes like to do a little research and they watch the videos, and I've had some people telling me they got some BFLs coming up and they wouldn't mind some lake breakdowns. Now, I've done Bugs Island. I've done a little bit of Lake Anna. I'm going to do Smith Mountain Lake. Now, I'm going to tell you guys straight off the bat that, I don't fish this lake a lot. I've fished it, maybe 15 times in the past, I don't know, probably 15 years or so. But I'm going to do a little breakdown on it kind of for the pre-spawn, really, because that's the time of year we're in. We're getting into that pre-spawn stage. And I'm just going to start off with Smith Mountain Lake here, and I'm going to kind of just go over a few things that I like to look for and what I would focus in on if I was coming here for a tournament or if I was just coming here to fun fish, especially this time of the year. And right off the bat, when I'm thinking, pre-spawn spring, the first thing I'm going to start looking at on the map is blue. Okay, you see all this white here and here. This is the main channel. This is all going to be your deeper water. And what I'm looking for is areas like something like this, something blue. And most of the time when I'm coming to Smith Mountain Lake, especially, or any other lake really, in the pre-spawn time, I'm going to be focusing on where's that shallow water at and where are these fish trying to get to or where they're heading to. And I've just been kind of going over this map a little bit and just looking around. And I've already found a lot of good areas. I'm sure some of you guys are being able to pick out some of the areas I'm talking about as I'm going through here. But I'll talk about some of my previous experience, especially in the spawn on this lake as well. But obviously, fish are going to be able to spawn anywhere over here on the main lake. I'll go ahead and tell you guys, I consider this kind of the main lake area. I guess this little home base. It's a weird shaped lake, so I can kind of consider this like the main lake, this whole section here. And then when I start getting mid lake, I'm talking about these sections here. And then when I'm talking up lake, I'm talking up the rivers. I believe this is the Black River here. And of course, obviously, this is the Roanoke River up here. And when I'm looking at this, if I was coming here to practice, like I said in the past, I've fished here during the spawn, and obviously you're going to have fish that spawn all over the lake, just like any other lake. And I've caught fish back in big creek arms like this, and I've caught them in little pockets spawning off the main lake like this. And usually early on, the first place they're going to really start to pull up that I noticed when I got here one time and spawn was just starting, was these types of little pockets and things like that. The shorter pockets on the main lake are definitely some places where they'll start pulling up first on the main lake. Key there is on the main lake. But if I was coming to fish and practice, I would be focusing on creek arms, places like this, like running up this creek right here. I'm not sure what creek this is. There's Gills Creek or something like that. But I'm looking for this blue, all this blue here, because that's telling me it's shallow water. You can see a lot of people have marks here. I'm sure these are brush pile. That might be a hard spot. Here's brush pile off a dock. Little channel swing bend down here deep. Steep bank right here. And probably another brush pile off this dock. But see, you got this back bay here, and this is what kind of stuck out to me was when I found all this blue. You got blue here. Yeah, blue here. So this is all shallow. Key is that water will warm up quicker. Also, these creeks, yeah, see Gills Creek right there. And it's going to have fresh water flowing in, and these creeks, they will warm up too, because they're shallow, so they're going to warm up, and a lot of times they can be pumping in a little cooler water. Not always the case if you get like a cold rain and things like that, but key is it's got fresh water coming in. And Smith Mountain Lake's typically a pretty clear lake all around until you probably get going way up these rivers and stuff. It starts getting a little stained, which is okay, because I know on the main lake I've had bass. I've seen 8-pounders that have been spawning like 6 feet deep, 7 feet deep out here in some of these areas on the main lake. But again, back to what we were talking about, I'm going to be focusing on these blue areas where it's going to get shallow and these fish are going to be able to come up and feed. And now with it being early like it is, you're not necessarily focusing on super shallow water, 3, 2 feet, but this is where the fish are going to start pulling up quickly because it's going to start warming up in these areas. And what you're going to be looking for are the areas where they're going to be staging, where they're going to be waiting before they start moving up and coming in here. There's going to be fish in here year round. I mean, it's deep. 38 feet, but it's a lot shallower than when you're out here 78 feet. Even I believe there's some places that are 100 feet deep. But little areas like this, if you follow, you can see right here, you got old roadbed, and then you have deep bank, and the actual channel flows in here, and it cuts right up against this bank here, and then it curves back in, and then cuts up against this bank here. These are going to be key areas to kind of key in on or try to focus on, trying to looking for where those fish are going to be staged up. You can have them in here up on this point would be good. They can be staged up right around this point, waiting to start moving up shallow back in like this cove or this pocket here. I know last week when I was out fishing one of our local lakes around here, I had been seeing a bunch of bass suspended, kind of roam around still in that winter pattern. And I went back, a couple days later, we actually had a warming trend here in Virginia. And when that happened, I noticed a different behavior in the fish. And that's the great thing about forward-facing technology nowadays. You can actually witness with your own eyes the transition take place. And instead of seeing fish out here suspended in open water, I was actually able to start seeing them sit. Let me try to zoom. I can't zoom in anymore. But basically, instead of being out here suspended and roaming in this open water, I was actually marking them on the bottom deeper. Well, not deeper, but I mean, they just weren't suspended. So obviously, if they're on the bottom, they're down deeper. But I was noticing them more on this first break line. I was seeing a lot of fish and a lot of marks right where the bank comes down and then meets the bottom. I was seeing schools of fish, and when I say schools of fish, I was seeing occasionally I'd see 5 or 6 together. So I guess you'd call them wolf packs, but I was seeing multiple different wolf packs. So it was just like a school of them. But they were really focusing on this first transition zone right here. And the bank was still a good, I don't know, 50, 40, 45 yards away from me. So it's not like I was like right up on the shore. So they were still out off there, but they were more focused on that little transition zone right where the bank meets the bottom. And I was able to see them on my active target, and I was able to cast to them with an umbrella rig, and I would just let it follow the bottom and reel it along the bottom. And even if I couldn't see the fish, I would have, if I raised my umbrella rig up off the bottom, I would see them following it. But most of the time I could see the fish. I'd see a bunch of marks right on the bottom, about a foot or two off the bottom, and they were just cruising, wolf packing, looking for bait. And what that keyed me in on was that transition is starting to happen. It's the end of February, we're getting into March, and that would be something that I would like to focus on when I come to this lake. Those transition areas, a good point like this, these fish that were out here, if they'll start getting up on these points, staging up. You hear about it all the time. Even on the inside here, these fish that were out in this cove just sitting around suspended, they can be sitting right off this first break, right where it contacts the bottom, and you even got a creek bed here. And I mean, these are just some little tips on breaking down a lake. You can find spots like this all over the lake, and that's really what you're going to want to key on. Like, see, there's a hump here. This is still 15 feet deep. This would be a good feeding area for bass, especially if they were out here, like I said, sitting off that first break right here, right on the bottom. They will come up here and feed, and they're just going to cruise back and forth along here. But there's plenty of examples of it. Even over here, when you start getting further up the river, you got your creek channel here, and it tucks up right against the bank. That's really what you want to be focusing on. That last deep water, last steep break before heading back into some of these backwaters, some of these back areas, even like a hump like this, focusing right here. not so much on, not always on top of the hump. You know, people go to fish like a hump or something. They're always wanting to cast up on top. Sometimes I'll sit on top of it and cast off of it and bring it from deep to shallow. But these fish, they'll get up and spawn. They'll not spawn, but they will stage on these areas. These are all staging areas throughout this river. And that's really what I'd focus on. I'd be focusing more on creek arms, like this is good here. I mean, see all the blue. So, and another thing I like about the shallower water is it's a lot less water to cover. It's when you get in deeper water, it's not that you're having to cover a lot more water, not just what you see horizontally, but you're having to cover a water column of, 40 feet, 50 feet. And you can catch them out here that deep. I mean, you catch good ones out here that deep. I think it took like 23 pounds to win a tournament last week. I know they put F1s in here not long ago. And I know those bass are already getting really big. And I say not long ago, but now I think about it, it might have been 5 years ago now. So those Florida strains are getting really big. And as you get down here, obviously I said it's a clear lake. I mean, down here it gets crystal clear. You got smallmouth in this lake too. And don't be afraid to hit areas like this, like the islands. I've caught good ones around this island. Caught big largemouth, and I've caught some big smallmouth along these shoals and around these islands. They'll tuck up back in here. I mean, look, this is almost like a perfect ditch. If you guys know anything about fishing a ditch or heard about people fishing ditches, you get these little, it basically comes and then comes to a dead end. Well, these fish will sit out here suspended, and they'll chase the bait up here shallow and they'll pin the bait up against the shallow hard bottom out here. And again, bass will still spawn out here too. I mean, like I said, I've seen them spawn in 8 foot of water out here just because it's so clear and you have all this shallow water out here. But most of the time you're looking for areas that are going to be protected from the elements such as wind and things like that and current, just because there are some other good areas. If you were to come up here in the Roanoke River, a couple of other key areas I looked at that I thought were nice. This is a good pocket in here. I think there's some, it's kind of a lot. I think a lot of people actually fish this cove. I've fished it maybe 2 or 3 times. But again, what does it have in common with a lot of the other things I was looking at is this, a lot of blue, a lot of shallow, a lot less water for me to actually cover just because it's not so deep. And these fish are going to come back here and spawn, but it's not that they're going to, I mean, only so many fish can spawn back in these areas. So they're going to obviously spawn all along the bank and everything, most likely around some of these docks. I know the back corner of these docks, they'll have just having the docks around and hard bank, there's going to be gravel and stumps and things for them to spawn on all along these banks. So I'm not necessarily just saying, oh, I'm going to come back here and every fish is trying to come all the way back in here. That's not the case. They're going to be pulling up all over the lake shallow, but I'm just trying to give you guys ideas of where to focus on if they aren't spawning yet. Those staging areas, like if you were to come in here, see you got, well, I don't like that one that much for what I'm about to talk about, but let's see, I think it was this guy here. Okay, so you come in here, you got a pretty defined creek channel. So you got this slow shoal here, and you got the main channel out here, but then over here you actually have this other creek channel. This is where that creek channel flows. So these fish will come, they'll stage up out here, and like I said, here you go again. Here's another good example. That last little stretch right there where it comes to the bottom right here, it's 52 feet deep, but then you can also check here where it starts getting a little shallower. I mean, 40 feet really isn't that deep. That's 2 lengths of a Z20. It's actually not that deep. But like I said, that first break right where it touches, basically kind of starts coming into the contact, or not so much contact with the bottom here, but it's that first different transition, major transition, where it goes from steeper to shallow. And like you hear all the time, it could be a foot difference, a 2-foot difference, a 3-foot difference. But, and again, you have this creek channel that flows all the way up through here. And a lot of times I'm looking for where that creek channel or that main channel, because like I'm saying, like these are the highways, these are the roads, and I'm just looking for where they're going to tuck up against the bank or something like that. Like right here you have the creek channel 32 feet deep, but then it comes in contact with a kind of a steep bank here and then again over here. So right on the bottom, that first little transition right where it contacts, and the same over here. That's what I've really noticed the past couple of weeks out here fishing, watching those fish actually go through the stage of transition from suspending and roaming to really wanting to get to the bank. And the fish, when they want to get to the bank, that's what they're going to do. Here's another good example right here where this cheek, I keep trying to call it a cheek, creek channel kind of comes in and it tucks up against this point and it curves in. So it's just a nice little staging area. Fish will come, they'll set up right here along this and cruise back and forth and feed around out here before you know a couple will head back into here and a couple head back into here. And obviously fish will come back in here and spawn up. You always got fresh water coming in. That's another thing I like to look for. I like creek arms that definitely have actual water flowing in as well. So I don't know. These are just my thoughts. This is how I would break it down. If I was coming to this lake this time of year, those would be the first things I focus on. I'd look at all this. I'd look for the blue, see where they're going to be going. And then I'm just going to work my way backwards until I find the fish. And that could be out here off a point like this where a roadbed comes in and it just tucks up, a nice hard bottom, perfect for them to stage up on, feed along here. You got a deep bank here too to hold them, and they can just slowly work their way back in here. And then again, you got like I said, you got the creek channel that comes in, touches up. You got the roadbed. Creek channel continues, touches back up against this point here before it works its way further back into here, where these fish are going to be wanting to go to spawn. Like I said, though, not all the fish are going to spawn back in here. That's where the majority, whoever gets there first, but other fish will spawn throughout all these pockets and coves. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on. That's what I would focus on. There was a tournament there this weekend that I wanted to fish, just didn't have the time or a truck at the moment to be able to go do it. But if I was to be heading up there, that's kind of what I would focus on when I first got up there and just start breaking down the lake from there. So I hope you guys like this video. I appreciate you guys' support, and I'll see you guys next time with another lake breakdown.